Hello, everyone. It's me, Travis of Giggles and Bits. And in true fashion of my experience with this show, this is the second time, not the fifth, thankfully, the second time I've had to record this video. Because when you rush things, you tend to miss things. And I rushed trying to do a review recording during my lunch, and my mic and headset weren't plugged in all the way. Enough for the sound to work on my headset, but not for my microphone to pick up any sound. So, yay. Let's get started. I have House of the Dragon, Episode 2. So I watched this early this morning. Overall impressions, let me get that out of the way. I enjoyed this episode a lot better. The pacing was a lot faster, still kind of slow all in all for the show, but I feel like the pacing was a little bit closer to what felt comfortable with the story that they were trying to tell. I still think the first episode was boring. The actors still do a fantastic job. Still enjoying every moment that Matt Smith is on screen. I'm enjoying a lot of the other actors and actresses in this show and the way that they portray their characters. A couple of things that happened here that I felt were way more pertinent to the story as opposed to what we got in the last episode. I feel like the last episode probably could have been shored up a little bit tighter with some of the storyline narratives that were meant to be set up, because the threads of anticipation for the next episode that I felt weren't there in episode one, in my personal opinion, I felt like were definitely there for this episode. So, yeah, no, I enjoyed this one a lot more than the last episode. A couple of key things that popped up on this one. We catch up with Rhaenyra and her father 6 months after the death of her mom and her brother, who was meant to be the heir. The king is still very much mourning, but the Hand's daughter, who is the Rhaenyra's friend, has been spending time talking to the king, and it seems to be just sort of like a courting thing, nothing crude. So the king doesn't seem like he's too terrible of a person, but in my opinion, he's a very ineffectual king and brings about a lot of the issues and problems that he's facing. I bring up that point because it seems like this individual who is acting on behalf of the free cities, they call him the crab feeder. We get a couple of scenes of some of the destruction that he is wringing. And we have this particular scene right here. This is actually a beach where there seems to be a lot of Westeros sailors being chained up on a beach like this, and they're being eaten by crabs alive in some cases. Some of them seem to have succumbed to this particular form of torture. We have this particular scene here. Even though Rhaenyra has been dubbed the next heir and officially everyone in the King's Council has bowed to her, they still have her serving drinks. They don't have her sitting in on these council meetings learning the day-to-day of running a kingdom. Definitely feels like she's been put off, and she expresses that every time she's not in one of these meetings. She feels like that they're plotting to get her father remarried so that he can produce another male heir to basically get rid of her. They don't want a female taking the Iron Throne. For one, the Hand is literally maneuvering his daughter to be in there, and then Lord Corlys isn't in this scene yet. He comes in, actually, I think a few frames after this. He comes in to talk about the ships that he just lost to the crab feeder. It's a big issue. But later on, he ends up putting up offering his own daughter, who's only 12, by the way, who's only 12, to the king as a bride. I don't know how that would work out. I don't know if they would wait a few years before they got married, or and sealed the deal, or if they'd marry her off right away. I don't know. I don't know how that would all work. It's pretty disconcerting, that whole conversation, and he seems very, very uncomfortable about that. So again, I feel like he's a good person, but a bit of a coward and not effective as a king with some of the decisions that he makes. We also find out in this scene that Daemon took over Dragonrock Keep, the Targaryen family household, and has basically moved his gold cloaks in there as like an army. And later we find out that he broke into where they keep the dragon eggs, stole one of the eggs that was meant to go in the crib of Rhaenyra's brother Balin while he was in the crib. That doesn't sit well with either the king or Rhaenyra, and prompts a standoff where Daemon declares that he's going to marry the prostitute that he flew off with at the end of the first episode, and that she's pregnant with his child. We find out none of that is true. Rhaenyra is not supposed to be there. She flies in like a boss on her dragon and basically calls him on his bluff and gets him to stand down, turn over the egg, and settles everything without bloodshed, where it was looking like it was going to get pretty nasty. Nice moment there for Rhaenyra, showing that she's a capable leader, and kind of puts the Hand of the King sort of on his heels, because this, on top of Lord Corlys offering his daughter, makes it seem like his plans are probably going to fall apart, but we end up finding out that that's not the case. Rhaenyra's friend is sitting in and talking with her dad. They're having these little conversations. She's not telling Rhaenyra that she's doing this, that she's basically being courted by her father. She doesn't know this at all. And it's fucked up because later on, the king finally bridges this gap between him and Rhaenyra, and they come to sort of an understanding. They haven't spoken to each other very much since the death of her mother. They're both hurting incredibly. And she knows that he's at least entertaining the idea of marrying Lord Corlys's 12-year-old daughter, and her becoming the next queen, basically for the good of the country. And she's somewhat bothered by that, but she understands. Her father basically is like, that they got to do this. I don't want to lose you. I don't want there to be a gap between us. And she's like, no, I understand what you got to do. Mom would understand what you got to do at this particular point in time. Basically gets the okay from him. He ends up announcing at a King's Council meeting that he is going to remarry, and he's going to remarry her, the Hand's daughter. And this shocks everyone in the council, including Lord Corlys and Rhaenyra. Lord Corlys is very pissed off about this decision. This could have mended the rift between their two households, the Valerian household and the Targaryen household. It was sort of split because of the decision to pass up on his wife, who was a possible heir to the throne, and to go with King Viserys. And that was a huge mistake on the king's part, because basically everyone's telling him that I know she's 12, she's not going to be 12 forever. Pedo vibes with that comment. But that would be the best deal, because Lord Corlys, the Sea Viper, owns about 50, basically controls 50% of the ships in Westeros. And they need that. They need that kind of firepower. And he basically storms out of the King's Council feeling extremely insulted. Rhaenyra is shocked. She is speechless to find out that her friend has been positioning herself to marry her father. She looks like she's been betrayed. So all sorts of shit, I imagine, is going to go down. Then we have this looming threat of the crab feeder guy out there, and we keep seeing glimpses of that. So they're definitely building him up. How big of a threat is he going to be? I have no idea. Again, I've never read the books. I have no clue. So this is just my opinion based on what I've seen from the show. The very last scene, you see Lord Corlys reaching out to Daemon and courting him to take care of the crab feeder issue, and establishing himself as a more kingly than King Viserys actually is. So King Viserys seemed to have a strong foundation to maintain and hold power, but he makes a lot of really stupid fucking decisions that seem to be costing him in the long run with regards to his crown and his rule. So that's where we're left off. Those are tangible hooks that make me interested in seeing the next episode. Now I'm invested. I wasn't feeling that way in the first episode. I'm glad I gave it a second. Hopefully the third continues this trend of better paced storytelling. But those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts, guys. I did not expect much from the show. I did not expect much. So when I got to the other one, I was like, well, there's some good things in here, but the storytelling is anemic. Not a lot happened in between the moments that stuff was really happening, and when the stuff was really happening, the pacing and the editing just didn't add the dramatic gravitas that I felt that we needed really to have in those scenes. But yeah, no, so far I'm pleasantly surprised that I'm enjoying this show. Lord of the Rings comes out on Thursday. I will be doing a review of that as well. That one I'm not looking forward to, but I'm going to check it out anyways. There's also that Sylvester Stallone, uh, is that a TV series on Prime? I want to check that out. I haven't heard enough about that, so I'm curious to see if it's any good. But yeah, that's where we're at. If you guys liked the video, like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Tell me what you're thinking about the series. If you feel like things are a little bit different, yeah, let me know what you think. And adios.